My name is John Franzese Jr., and I am lucky to be chatting with Staxx.
Welcome to this episode of Chatting with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got John Franzese Jr.
And he looked at me and brushed it off, and we smiled. And those were just some of the tactics that Bernie, that was normal. I mean, it sounds terrible, but they try to get close to you, and they would say that. I don't think he ever would have done that, but I think he wanted to see my reaction. And, Bill, you're not going to believe this. Less than a week later, I'm at 231 again. Bernie comes there and he says, John, I know the other night I shouldn't have said that. He said, but something came up in my house. He said, I have a son that went to Herrick's High School, my high school. He said, and your name got brought up. And my son said that you used to stick up for him. Now, his son had some handicaps, like you'd note it, very noticeable, and kids used to try to pick on him. Now, I didn't know it was Bernie's son, but I never let anyone bother him. Like once I got to 11th grade, again, and I was always friendly with him. And Bernie came and apologized and said, I'm really sorry. I want to thank you for what you did for my son. So, and that was pretty cool chain of events, the way that happened. And Bill, I got to tell you that we didn't appreciate the government. We didn't like them. We didn't want them, but we respected them, like Patton and Rommel, different sides. As long as they don't frame you, you don't mind, you don't mind, do your job.
They did that to your dad quite a bit.
Well, they did for sure. I mean, on the case that he got that he got convicted of. Well, you know what happened on a homicide case, right?
On the boot, right? The boot one?
What do you mean, the boot?
Didn't he get convicted on killing the boot? Ricardo or something?
The Hawk.
Oh, Richie. The Hawk.
Rapolo.
Yeah, Rapolo.
Okay, he never got convicted. Do you know how he didn't get convicted?
No.
At the end of the trial, some guy from in the prison came forward and said that he's the one who killed him. The prosecutor, they say, was never the same again. He's like, you can't believe this. Don't listen to this. It's a lie. They paid him. They did this. The guy had a life sentence, or he was on death row at the time. It's a true story. Nobody talks about it enough. And my father got acquitted. I mean, at the end of the just like in the movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a book about it called...
He gets set up for a bank robbery, though, doesn't he?
Well, a group of guys that were friendly with this Ernie the Hawk Rapolo were bank robbers. And Michael has spent time years later. He uncovered the main bank robber's girlfriend or ex-wife, and she told us a whole bunch of stuff that we knew was true, that they never knew Sonny and that they set Sonny up. And I think at that time we got a letter from one of the witnesses that literally it was Richard Parks and another guy named Zayer, and the main guy was Cordero. Well, Parks sent a letter to Zayer saying, hey, if you come along with me and John and frame this guy Sonny, literally, it's still on public record, that word, that the government said that they'll get us off and we can go free. Now, the judge literally wrote back in his decision that his interpretation of the word frame is the general scope of the thing, that it didn't imply what me and you sitting here know what it mean, the context with which it was written. And
Wow.
that's all on public record. And years later, I don't remember how we got in touch with John Cordero. He was the only one that didn't recant. Like the Richard Parks and Zaire, I think they recanted at that time, but the judge didn't buy it. Finally, many years later in the 90s, I think Mike Pollock, our lawyer, who handled a lot of business for my dad, I think my brother, he had a brother named Elliot Pollock, and uh, so Mike Pollock got in touch with us. Some other lawyer got in touch with Mike Pollock and said that there's this John Cordero. And to make this shorter, we all go see him. We sit in the lawyer's office with his lawyer. We say, look, we don't want this to look like anyone's threatening you or any of this. And he said, no, I came to you. I wanna recant my testimony and tell the truth. And he sat there and said stuff like that at the time of the trial in the back room where the witnesses were held, that the FBI was showing them pictures of my dad to make sure they remembered which one was my dad. They said, we never seen him before. We didn't know who he was. We might have been able to see him in a club and notice who was listening to who. But, I mean, everyone knew the name Sonny Franzese. Everyone.
Yeah.
So they said they had to make sure. And a little while longer, me and a fella named Frankie Campione, who became a made member in the 80s or very early 90s, a friend of my dad's since about 84, from the same neighborhood as Williamsburg. When my dad went to jail, me and Frankie spent a ton of time together. Frankie spent a lot of time while my father was away tracking me down while I was drinking and getting high like an animal. But we also did a lot of things together. It was me and Frankie mainly with doing a lot of the personal stuff for my dad and whoever was under him. And we were the ones that were given the task to keep John Cordero safe and until the hearing. I think that's what it's called, a hearing or a motion or whatever. And we sat there and listened to this guy say so many things. And I always believed my dad, because my dad wouldn't have lied to us. He wasn't guilty of that crime. That's a guarantee.
During your time, right, being younger, around 17 to 19, do you see any acts of violence, or do you have to commit any violence against anyone, whether they owe money, or have you seen anybody else commit violence?
These are things, yeah, I saw a lot of guys get a beating, and sometimes just randomly. Before I was proposed, I became very sensitive to, I wanted to look tough. Listen, I think in some ways I held my own because I loved my dad and my brother, and I wanted to be like them, and I loved hanging around with Andrew Russo. But Bill, between the two of us, there's a lot of people now. When I look back on my life, when Michael told me about my family and the organized crime thing, when you're picked on and you don't feel right about yourself, once you get some power and strength, like all of a sudden 16 years old, driving the nicest car in the whole school, teachers and all, getting in and out of clubs, any club, Studio 50, anything. I mean, and I'm realizing who we are. And all of a sudden, I became a bully. I knew how to fight. I could fight a little bit. I wasn't the toughest kid, but I don't think a lot of people wanted to fight me either way, whether they could win or not. Um, and I became a part of what I didn't like, what was done to me. I mean, if in all due reality, that's how I look at myself. People say I was a good guy, and a lot of my old friends that I'm friends with now are saying they didn't see that. But I knew that guys like my father and Andrew and Chucky Russo, Jojo Russo, my brother, Tootie, there was something different about them. Like, so I had to always make sure I looked tough. So I would do a lot of things for all the wrong reasons when a lot of times I thought when I knew I had an advantage. And I don't feel very good about that these days when, when I kind of got honest with myself when
Yeah.
my life changed. And but I was a pretty bad dude. I mean, I was kind of known for I got in a lot there at that club 231. I mean, the manager said, "Hey, are you going to come in here this week and not have a fight?" Because we, half time we cleared the place out. There was, and it was Paulie Vario's place. Thank God he put up with me. I mean, I was friends with his nephew Vito. We hung out there a lot. We got really close for a little while, and I went to. I was invited to Jimmy Burke's daughter's Sweet 16, and I go to his house, and Jimmy's in jail, and one of his daughters tells him Sonny's son came too, and there's a line to talk to Jimmy because he's calling from jail, a
Yeah.
line, and I wasn't even in the line. I don't know Jimmy, I just know of him, Hey, it's Jimmy Burke, and he had nice kids, and all of a sudden his daughter comes and says, "Hey, John, my dad wants to talk to you." So I'm like, so when you ask, did I get a lot of attention or respect? I get on the phone and he goes, "Hey, listen, how's your dad? Tell him I send my best." And you feel like a superstar, I mean, here's Jimmy Burke calling me down there and saying hello to me to make sure I say hello to my father. And everywhere I went, if I ran into Jimmy Knapp, Sonny Black, Anthony Ribito. I mean, anyone from the neighborhood, Matty the Horse, because I ran into him a couple of times in the neighborhood, and Michael sent me to give him money one time for some club. Michael was making a movie, and they had a promo event in this club, and Michael had to pay, didn't want to pay the owner, wanted to give it to Matty, and I had to. I mean, it was always, "How's your dad?" Fritzy Giovanello used to come and take us to the ball games while my dad was in jail. I mean, I loved it. I mean, I felt like a king.
Was there any famous people that would come around? Because I know your dad had a lot of relationships with a lot of famous people too.
More than you know. Do I remember off the top of my head? Uh, I'm not sure. I know that when look, I was a Yankee fan, right? What are you, a Boston fan? You
Nah,
Red
I
Sox?
like the Yankees.
Okay, well they finally lost, thank God, that ball. They won 15 in a row, for Christ's sake. I was like, holy cow. Anyway, I respect them as a team. I really do. But I'm a Yankee fan, and I was a kid. I loved number 5, Joe DiMaggio, my whole life. And listen, my brother and my father, if my father was alive, they'd both say they were Yankee fans. They might be now, but they weren't. They were Met fans. Don't let them, if you ever run into don't let him tell you he was a Yankee fan, because he wasn't. He was a Met fan. And so was my dad. And then years later, they made believe, who knows? So I always loved Joe DiMaggio. I was 5 years old, and a couple of times I was supposed to meet him before my dad got convicted in '69. And I was supposed to meet him, but it didn't work out. We thought we had time. My dad always kept his promises. So now all of a sudden, I'm 18 years old. I'm not even thinking about meeting Joe DiMaggio anymore. So one day my dad says, "Come on, we're gonna go somewhere," and we meet a guy named he was a casting guy, and he was in the entertainment business. His name was Lou Perry. As a matter of fact, Lou Perry Productions was the minor casting for The Godfather. Lou Perry was the guy that got Bob Evans close to my dad. He's the producer of The Godfather.
Yeah.
And so we go to we go to the Stage Deli. Joe DiMaggio was there with, I think, his lawyer or his manager. I'm there with Lou Perry and my dad. We're in Stage Deli, and Joe DiMaggio walks in. He sits down. He brings me a signed baseball. We have lunch with him. We do this. And I had forgotten that my dad promised me I was going to meet him. I was just like, hey, this is cool, Joe D. And afterwards, my father said, remember when I told you I get you to meet Joe, I bring Joe DiMaggio, you can meet him? And I remember, stuff like that he was really good with. I mean, Joe Pepitone came to my house to eat dinner on a Sunday, and my father yelled at him for being late, yelled, yelled at him for asking for a drink, and he yelled at him for asking my mother for a cigarette. He goes, hey, what are you doing? I told my kid athletes don't friggin' drink, they don't smoke. and and to make up for it, he had a football catch with me and my cousin Michael Nardone because it was in the cold weather. And we were friendly ever since. After that, there's a lot of entertainers that I met. I mean, off the top of my head.
So you started getting involved with the entertainment business, right? Like the music business.
Listen, that was something I loved. I really wanted to do that. But I was so smitten with the gangster thing that I didn't realize that there were parts of me that didn't do what I really wanted to do. So I gangstered the music business. And in other words, I kind of did the gangster shit instead of trying. I mean, I tried. I had a production company with Steve Rifkin, Julie Rifkin's son up at Spring Records, who ended up owning Loud Records. Loud Records was they sold it for $95 million, I think, to Sony in 1990. I think it was 95 or 95. They RCA bought them for 37 million. I mean, I don't know, but I loved it.
Wasn't there a situation with Suge Knight?